Hi, it's Glenn Evans from Church Security Alliance, and I want to talk very quickly about Reverend Jones from Gainesville, Florida. This is a man who has basically planned an event for September 11th where he is planning on burning a copy of the Koran. Now, there are many issues filtering into this, but my focus here is really from a security perspective and what your church needs to think about from this particular event if it does occur. Uh, what Reverend Jones is doing here is basically, if he goes through with it, is going to infuriate the radical element of the Islamic movement or Islamic religion. And what we have seen from times past, and I'm thinking specifically of the Swedish cartoonist who created a image of Muhammad that it was not flattering and that was offensive to them. He was actually later physically attacked by a group of students while he gave a lecture at a university. And so what I want you to begin thinking about here is what could happen in a situation like this, and is your church at risk for violence if it does? Now, the media has branded Reverend Jones as an evangelical. So they have definitely made it a pitting two religions against one another. And what we know about fundamentalist Islamic groups is that they are more than willing to use violence against groups who they perceive as the enemy. Now, radical Islam sees everybody as the enemy who does not see the world as they do. So what can you do as a church security team, as a church security leader? What can you do to prepare your church for a potential violent outbreak? Now, there are many elements on the spectrum where your church could be threatened. I think the person who's most threatened at this point is Reverend Jones and his group. I think that he should prepare himself for a violent reaction if he does go through with this plan of burning the Quran. But what you need to think about is just start at the basics. Thinking about pre-planning for protests outside and inside your church, and pre-planning with the local police department, especially if you're in a metropolitan area that has a large group of Muslims, and you can believe that some of them may view this as offensive. I would think probably most Muslims would see this as a very offensive event. As a Christian, I would see a burning of a Bible as being very offensive. As an American, I see the flag being burned as very offensive. Those are my personal views. But my reaction is going to be different than a radical Muslim in that I'm not going to seek out vengeance, and I'm not going to attempt to kill, maim, or hurt somebody that is seen as an enemy of my particular religion. I just kind of shrug my shoulder and say that's a shame, that shouldn't happen. I'm personally offended by that, but I'm not going to seek out the harm against that person. I think that's maybe the distinction between Christianity and between radical Muslims is that our reaction to that is completely different. Now, with all of this said, this is not an argument about his right to do this as an American. I think he does have the right to protest in any way he sees fit, but I do think that it comes down to whether this is a wise thing. Even General Petraeus said that people are probably going to be losing their life over this particular protest because, as we've seen in the past, people are killed and people are assaulted as a result of their perceived slight against their religion. So your church can begin the process of planning for any threat very simply by pre-planning it. As I've said, if it's in a metropolitan area, if there's a large group of Muslims, but you also have to plan for the potential attack that is unknown. And so really this comes down to planning. If your church has done nothing about planning, you need to get started today. We can help you with that with our startup kit. If you've already purchased that, or you're down the pike and you're here on our site just because you're interested in church security, there's lots of articles within our site about pre-planning, cooperating with your local police department, and even armed guards within the church. So these are my thoughts about this particular situation. My prayer and my hope is that he doesn't go through with this because I think it's a foolish venture. and it's kind of stirring the pot when the pot doesn't necessarily have to be stirred. So again, Glenn Evans from Church Security Alliance, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and we appreciate the efforts that you're making as far as church security within your church.